The Hundred Years' War, lasting from 1337 to 1453, was not merely 100 years of perpetual conflict. It was a time of shifting alliances, courageous leaders, and the fighting man. It was a war that transcended generations, leaving a permanent mark on the history of medieval Europe. From the legendary battles of Crecy and Agincourt, to the heroic deeds of figures like the Joan of Arc, Hundred Years' War was a canvas painted with stories of courage, sacrifice, and resilience. It witnessed the ebb and flow of fortune, with victories and defeats on both sides, illustrating the unpredictable nature of war. Join me in this video where I recreate a typical English versus French medieval battle using the 1212 AD mod for Attila Total War. So, as you've seen from the cinematics, the battle has begun. The English, 1,000 strong, are walking through the north of France. We're in a lovely wilderness here, with plenty of tree line for cover, and it seems though that the French do know we're coming, who are set up, as I'm sure you've seen from the cinematics, quite far in the distance in this tree line over here. We have a mixture of troops that I've picked to represent an English force I feel like would be available in the 100 Years' War. 100 Years' War, obviously, 100 years, so there's a vast range of different troops, armours, weapons, fighting styles. Things mostly stayed the same, such as the English's big use and big success with the Welsh and English longbowmen, who are world-renowned for their, victories, alongside the English's very, very well-esteemed man-at-arms and armoured knights. We can see here, I've got that represented with more levy troops here. So represented of normal troops who maybe are part-time soldiers, not full-time, or maybe they're levied, literally no martial experience apart from previous conflicts. So they're reflected here by their low standing. You can see that in the armour, basic gambesons with some steel helmets being quite low quality, and then they've got billhooks, glaives, that sort of thing. Further up in the line, we have got our shielded spearmen. These are more like it, more of a retinue troop here with chainmail armour. They've got brigandines on, they've got more martial-like steel helmets instead of just little bucket hats. And they've got, even though they've got spears and shields, which you might not think is more of a cheaper weapon, still extremely effective. Further up, we've got the cream of the crop here. Dismounted knights and man-at-arms. So the man-at-arms here are represented with their poleaxes, but they have a range of weapons in a real-life English army, from short spears and shields, swords, axes, maces, all sorts. It's not just one type of weapon that they'd use. We can see here their wealth represented by the vast amount of plate armour that they have, and actually some of them having colours. Maybe it's their house, maybe it's their lord's house, not sure. But we can see just how much more impressive these guys look compared to our levy billmen back there. But finally, over here, we've got our mounted knights. So the English had a mixture of mounted knights and dismounted knights, but from all the studying I've done of the 100 Years' War period, it seems that the English had a lot more dismounted knights. I'm not sure whether it's just a personal fighting style, I'm not sure whether it's because they're attacking overseas, and so horses were a lot more logistically difficult to not only ship them over, but to keep them fed, keep them under control. But yeah, the English had a lot more dismounted knights, so that's what I've represented there with a lot of our man-at-arms and dismounted knights here. But we can still see we have got some, we've got a very nice amount of plated knights here, and at the back, the king himself, the king's bodyguard. Again, this isn't set in a particular time period, a particular date, but it is set in the time period of Edward III's 1345 conquest into France, or you could have King Henry's 1415, that time period. So it could be a mixture. I haven't decided on which king it is in this battle. This is just a bit of fun. It's not representative of a single battle that happened, more of just a reflection of the 100 Years' War as a whole. In the distance, though, who I spoke of earlier, we have got the French, who've set up some cavalry spikes here to, put our cavalry with a bit of a challenge. They've got stakes, they've got cavalry spikes. We can see a lot of them are hidden, so I can't even speak about them. But hopefully you saw the cinematic previously where the French were listed. So the battle's actually close. I've had my troops marching down this forest valley, and we are approaching an opening where the French Genoese crossbowmen, who they've hired from the Genoese, might be able to start engaging with us. So I need to be careful now. We're on the forest edge, and soon our men will be under fire. So the longbowmen just moving into position. I think we want to get them pushed up with the billmen pushing in at front, and then we can engage. So what I noticed that the French had done, those cheeky French, is set up those cavalry traps and stones and fortifications along a massive strip of that forest edge. So what I've actually done, repositioned my troops. Why the hell would I attack my cavalry front on to cavalry spikes and all that sort of a trap? So I've repositioned my troops up on this hillside because I noticed that in the distance there was an opening here. It could be a trap. Maybe the French has got hundreds and thousands of pikemen lined up here ready for us to attack this way. But it still looked like there was an opening that we could exploit, because you can see here there were all sorts of dugouts that our cavalry would fall into, whereas here we can see that it doesn't seem like that's the case. So repositioning my troops, the big marching column here of all our melee troops, and then the column over here, which could be actually quite exposed to the enemy, but they haven't seemed to march out to get us. But these are all our longbowmen. And again, a nice amount of longbowmen, but I've gone for a more melee-heavy army instead of massive amounts of longbowmen. But this isn't really too reflective of an actual English army, because they would have a lot more longbowmen that we have here. But this is just for a bit of fun. It's not to be extremely accurate to the real army. It's just a rough basing off of it. So the troops are moving on in. I've got my longbowmen in a double line so that they can get a nice range of fire, but they're not too clumped up for the Genoese crossmen to rain fire down on them. We then have our double line of infantrymen with the cavalry to the flanks and the general's bodyguard in the centre, with either the king or one of the dukes at this bodyguard. We then have the enemy somewhere in this forest, or they might have actually been scared off and have pushed back to this hill, where they obviously have an advantage against our mounted units. So let's see how we do. But as soon as we make it into this gap, we've already then overcome the obstacle of this cavalry spikes. We can push on down. So we have reached the first area of deployment and not met with any French troops. So it seems like what I said previously of them being set up on this hill must be the case. We're going to keep marching down. As soon as we make contact, I shall return. We made contact with the French. They've emerged out of the forest and they're charging at us with their mounted knights, crashing or about to crash into our billmen there. We have got, though, the knights that ambushed us out of the forest and came sweeping down into my overextended longbowmen. Pitiful mistake from me there, but I now need to get on the case with organising my cavalry. So we've got our billmen that are going to attack their troops, but my cavalry, which are our main asset, need to be moved out to the flanks. The French are being cut to pieces. We've got our dismounted man-at-arms and knights here, who are engaging with the French's own dismounted knights and man-at-arms. However, we've got them completely surrounded. We've got spearmen flanking round them quite slowly, but albeit they are flanking round. We've got our longbowmen, the vast amount of longbowmen, firing their heavy arrows at the French knights, and they've now routed. We can see that the Genoese crossmen are set up here, so let me get my fire orders on these guys. We don't want to be anti-sniped by these bad boys. So we'll get our longbowmen firing at these Genoese crossbowmen. We've here got the massive crowd where the elites, mounted or dismounted knights, but these look like more billmen are engaging our man-at-arms. We've got our knights here who actually have dealt with those enemies. So let's push our troops up here to go for a flank. Finally, we've got our knights back here. So let's get them engaging at the Genoese crossbowmen on the hillside. We've got our longbowmen here who previously were engaged with those cavalry, but we actually managed to kill the enemy cavalry ourselves through shooting at them with heavy arrows and charging our own cavalry at them. So it really is just the remnants of these infantry that are left. And we've got so many infantry that are just cutting the French apart. We can see here, we've got all these troops who I want to push around. So it looks like the battle's going massively in our favour, guys. And the English longbowmen are doing masses of damage to these enemy. Saying that, we have been overexposed on this flank. So let me pull my longbowmen back and engage at them with these troops. We can see here the Genoese crossbowmen that had fled from our cavalry have finally been caught up by our elite knights. And while the Genoese crossbowmen are heavily armoured and have their rear shields actually used as a weapon, or not a weapon, but as in the hand-to-hand against these knights, they actually do look quite threatening. But again, we've got mounted knights here, and we should be crushing these guys. Back here on the battlefield, the enemy have regrouped and are in quite a big number here, but we had so many reserve troops. With all these artillery bodyguard and these more knights here, we can cut down any fleeing troops. So the longbowmen firing at these now fleeing spearmen. We got a massive advantage over these enemy. And there we go. There's the victory. So we can see here, it was quite an even amount of English to French. Usually in the 100 Years' Wars, or at least the battles that I'm familiar with, and some of the famous ones like Agincourt, the French massively outnumbered the English. In this battle, I actually have given the English an advantage, which is why we won so nicely, but I thought I'd been quite fair with both sides. And so while, yes, we have a lot more units than they do, I did spend the same amount of total war coins, and so I gave the French a lot of their elite cavalry, a lot of their very expensive dismounted knights, and all their spearmen are all retinue late ages spearmen, whereas a lot of mine are early billmen, and my longbowmen, while obviously very effective, are just lightly armoured. So they had the best Genoese crossbowmen, they had elite knights of all types, and they had obviously some very strong cavalry. But they got destroyed, and we killed 2,000 of them to only taking 800 losses on our side. And this is quite reflective of a lot of those early period battles where the English dominated. However, later on, the English start to take some losses here and there. But again, this is just a bit of fun, and I thought it was quite interesting. So guys, that is the end of this quick battle video. I really hope you've enjoyed, and if you've watched it all the way to the end, then I really thank you for your time, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Just a quick note, this was obviously the first Attila 1212 AD mod that I've covered on the channel. In fact, it's the first Total War video I've ever covered on the channel. It's very different to a lot of the other games I play, and so I'm not taking a risk here, but just thought I'd try something new. If you have enjoyed this video, please show your love in the comments and leave a like, and if you want to see more Total War 1212 AD mod content, then please do subscribe so you can get notified when a video is released. My plan is to actually create a series on this, and I could create two series. One is what I'm working on right now, which is a 100 Years War battle series, where I'm going to historically recreate the battles as accurately as I can to give a representation of what the 100 Years War was actually like, showing off some history, but obviously showing off those beautiful Attila of the War cinematics. The other plan I had, which I'm not 100% sure on, so please do show your love in the comments if you are interested in this, but is a campaign playthrough of maybe the English, maybe the French, maybe the Scottish, Welsh, whatever, on the 1212 AD mod, and that could last 10-15 episodes just to see how much we can conquer, how much of Europe we can conquer. Anyway guys, once again, if you've watched the video to the end, I really do appreciate your support. and I hope you've enjoyed. So I'll see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.